The Institute of Internal Auditors presents All Things Internal Audit. In this episode, Lindsay Patterson speaks with Dennis Applegate about how internal audit education is shaping the future of the profession. From addressing the talent pipeline shortage to giving students hands-on experience with risk assessments and mock audit plans, Applegate shares how academic programs can inspire the next generation of internal auditors.
Hi, everyone. Lindsay Patterson here with the IIA. I am our Executive Vice President of Membership, Marketing, and Communications. And one of the areas that I work on a lot day to day is building the pipeline into the profession. So I am very excited today to be joined by Dennis Applegate, a professor at the Albers School of Business at Seattle University, which is one of the IIA's Center of Excellence schools, to start talking about how we can build the pipeline together. Hear some of the exciting work that he's doing in his classrooms. So, Dennis, does that sound like a good plan?
Yes, I'm eager to get started.
All right, so tell our audience a little bit about your background, how you got involved in internal audit, and then started teaching it.
Okay, good. I'm a CPA and a CIA by profession, and have taught college courses in accounting and auditing part-time for more than 30 years while working full-time in private industry, mostly in internal audit management. But following my retirement, I was hired by Seattle University to teach in their internal audit program, mainly the introductory course, Principles of Internal Auditing. And for the past 7 years, I've taught full-time in the accounting department, not just internal auditing, not just the internal auditing principles class, but other courses as well, mostly in accounting, financial auditing, and financial management.
So I'm a CPA, CIA too, so you probably know this. The CPA profession right now having a big pipeline challenge. Fewer and fewer students are sitting for the CPA exam over the last several years. Fewer students have been enrolling in accounting programs. And that's not great for internal audit because we still see in North America that the majority of internal auditors come from that accounting background. So hearing that, what are you guys doing? What are you seeing work at the university to attract the students to internal audit when there's that decline in the pipeline?
Well, I guess first I can talk a little bit about the trends that we've seen. The demographic data that's been reported, particularly, I think the most influential one was the Internal Audit Foundation report a few years back that shows the age of internal auditors under 40 years has declined 17%, while the age of internal auditors over 40 years has increased 18%, pushing the overall age of the profession much higher. So if this trend continues, many internal audit leaders are questioning whether the next generation of internal auditors will be sufficient to meet the demand. The best way for educators to help replenish this internal auditor pool is by integrating internal audit education into their existing business curriculums and by providing standalone internal audit courses, very similar to what we do at Seattle University. The IIA's global model internal audit curriculum gives detailed guidance for such courses and for the integration of those courses into the business curriculum at universities. In addition, the IIA encourages members of local IIA chapters to support IIA partner schools by teaching internal audit courses, by serving as guest lecturers who can demonstrate to students the critical role of internal auditing in the day-to-day operations of the firm. In our case at Seattle University, we got 3 members of the local IIA Seattle chapter teach audit-related courses at Seattle U. Several other members teach periodically or support the school's business coursework in other ways. They're guest lecturers or they serve on our advisory committees. So in our opinion, those are the best ways to attract and prepare the next generation of internal auditors.
Absolutely, Dennis. Those are some great options for individuals. If you're in academia, or even if you're not, if you're an individual, you can volunteer to be a guest lecturer. But you said something a few times that I really loved. You talked about the business school. And right now, we see so many internal audit courses built in just to the accounting program, which is a great start. But when we see these challenges with building out the pipeline, I think having more of that internal audit curriculum in the broader business school is a great way to raise awareness of the profession. Because I don't know about you, but when I went and I got my master's degree in accounting, I focused on audit. That was my area of specialty. I don't know that I ever heard anyone talk about internal audit. It was all external audit. So we also have just an awareness problem. So I love that. I love that it's part of the business school and the business curriculum. Can you tell us a little bit about what internal audit course you teach? What are the objectives? How does it bring students into the profession? What are you integrating into that curriculum?
Yeah, see, again, the course that I teach is Principles of Internal Auditing, and it contains 4 objectives. The first objective is it explains the COSO Enterprise Risk Management Framework and the COSO Internal Control Framework to students. Those are the primary conceptual frameworks that form the basis of the profession. Secondly, the course covers heavily professional IIA standards that guide risk assessment, the master audit plan, and discrete audit projects. So we've got the conceptual frameworks, then we have the IIA standards. The third objective is to define the roles and responsibilities of the internal auditor in assessing risk, particularly enterprise risk, and in assessing controls that mitigate the risk to the firm. And the fourth objective is to describe the assurance tests and techniques that help to assess governance, risk management, and process controls. In addition to those objectives, special attention is also given to audit sampling plans, particularly attribute sampling, and the role of internal auditors in assessing internal controls over fraud. So audit sampling plans and fraud, we have special classes on each of those topics. If you boil it down, the main objective is to develop in the student a risk and control mindset. And that concept and technique is blended into every class that into the agenda of every class in this particular course in one form or another.
So it feels like you guys have looked at all of our research and all the foundations research and are leading the way in terms of what we would like to be seeing in a profession, because that enterprise risk piece is so critical for internal auditors today, but especially a few years from now. For our listeners who haven't read our Vision 2035 report, this is something that the stakeholders within the profession, audit committees, boards, CAEs are saying is going to become increasingly important over the next several years, internal auditors having that role in enterprise risk management. So love hearing that the students are already getting that insight and that practice. How do they actually learn it hands-on? Are there case studies? What are you doing to get them that experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you correctly point out that enterprise risk is really at the top of mind for the profession. A couple years back, 2023, KPMG did a survey of audit committees, and 62% of the respondents want greater focus by their internal audit functions on critical enterprise risks. That's the highest response rate by far to the questions that were asked. They want greater focus by internal audit departments on enterprise risk. So for this reason, our Seattle University students are taught that the board and senior management, view the world in terms of enterprise strategy and the risk to that strategy, both in terms of likelihood and impact of not achieving that strategy. This is a little bit of an aside here, but we also emphasize in the course in the courses that we teach, we emphasize that rather than focus entirely on controls, we focus on what the client management is interested in, and their interest is in risk. It's not necessarily in controls as much as it is in risk. So it's the risk to earnings targets, market share, major projects, the reputation of the firm. That's the focus that senior executives are interested in. We don't discount the importance of adequate and effective internal controls, but we just want to emphasize to the students that if we want to get the attention of senior management of the board, we got to focus on the enterprise risk, the risk to the strategies of the firm. So we integrate that. We integrate this concept of enterprise risk, into the agenda of nearly every class. Even our class on audit sampling plans spends time on the notion of enterprise risk. And just to kind of follow up on, I think, another aspect of the question that you asked, which is how we present this or how we teach our students about the concept of enterprise risk. We assign a team-oriented project that's designed to emulate, to mirror the required annual internal audit risk assessment. As you know, the global internal audit standards require the development of a master audit plan and schedule. So that's the end product of this team-oriented student project. The end product is a master audit plan and schedule. We usually have 25 to 35 students in a class, and depending on the size, we'll assign 4 to 5 students to a team. We have 6 or 7 teams that are working on the enterprise risk of major companies, major firms in the Pacific Northwest area, and we got a ton of them, very strong, well-known firms: Boeing, Nordstrom, Starbucks, PACCAR, Microsoft, Expedia, Costco, Alaska Airlines. All of those we've used at various stages as the targets of the risk assessment of the teams that we've assigned.
Some of those teams sound like they might have some very interesting risk assessments based on some of those companies in the news the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
Are they doing this research just with public information? Do they connect with individuals within the companies? What does that look like?
The teams start with the SEC 10K, because in the SEC 10K, there's usually a strong information available on the strategy of the company and the financial and operational and compliance risks that the firm is facing. So that's really the starting point. The teams also do library research, looking for current events that'll have an impact on the risk of the enterprise risk of the firms. And they also, about these firms, since they're so woven into the culture and the business of the community here, those are the sources. What we don't allow is for the students to actually contact the firm themselves, because what that tends to do is it tends to tweak or otherwise gives an unfair advantage. Let me say it that way. It gives an unfair advantage to certain teams that don't have the same access. It's the
insider trading of the academic world.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and then in building out, that frameworks that they're using, are they using like a SWOT analysis, heat maps? How are you teaching them to assess risk effectively? Because I'm going to guess that a lot of these students have never done a risk assessment before.
So in evaluate, the students present the results of their projects to an audit committee, a hypothetical audit committee, and that committee is comprised of senior professional internal auditors, usually at the management level.
Oh, I love that.
They present the results of their work to them. Now, the key that we teach here, the key aspect of this is that there has to be a clear line of sight from the enterprise strategy through the assessed risks to the audit projects. Because unless the projects reflect, the audit projects in the master plan reflect the assessed risks, that address the strategies of the company, then the master audit plan would lose relevance and credibility with the board. So that's the key thing that we emphasize when we teach this project, is to make sure that that sight line is maintained. And that's the basis that the audit committee will use when they evaluate the projects that are presented. So there has to be that direct linkage. And if that isn't there, then of course the teams run the risk of a problematic grade.
Well, that makes sense. It aligns perfectly with what we expect in the profession, right? Because the standards say that internal audit team's strategic plan should align with the goals and plans of the organization. So it sounds like you're setting students up for success in the real world.
Yeah. So let me just give you a quick overview of what's presented, because I think that'll address part of your question. So that the students will present this risk assessment based on a template that we provide, a slide-by-slide template. So they have, direct guidance on what the hypothetical audit committee that we use for the evaluation, what they're expecting. So it begins with an overview of the firm, but it's not the same overview that one would normally expect, because we're talking to an audit committee. The audit committee knows their firm. So there'll be a brief statement of what the firm's strategy is and what their business objectives are. And then they'll launch into a synopsis of the competitors and any risks that the competition poses to the firm's strategies. And then an analysis of external and internal events that present risk to the firm. Usually we try to get them to segregate those risks into control by their controllable and non-controllable nature. And then all the risks are then listed in descending order. This would be on a subsequent slide. All the risks are listed in descending order of severity. And the severity would be defined as the likelihood of the risk occurring times the impact, the dollar impact of the risk. That would be the severity. And then those risks are then displayed top down in descending order, highest risk severity first, all the way down through the most critical risk. Usually we try to limit, because the presentations could extend over a long period of time. We try to limit the number of critical risks to about 6, so that they can get through the presentation in about a half an hour. As it is, the class where we do the presentations tends to go extremely long, so we need to keep it as short as possible. Included also would be a heat map, maybe others would call it a 4-blocker, where in the upper right-hand quadrant of the block of the heat map, there would be the critical risk based on impact and likelihood. The final slide would show the actual projects that would be done as part of the audit plan. They would schedule the projects, what quarter of the upcoming year the projects would be performed, and the scope and purpose of each of the projects, as well as the risks that would be addressed by each. The teams not only make the presentation, but they also prepare a written report to document the results of their oral presentation. So when I do the final grading, based on the critique of the audit committee, if there's anything that I didn't pick up on in the presentation, I can always reference that in the written report as well, so that the grading is there.
I love that. It sounds like these students are getting so much hands-on experience, the real day-to-day work that they're hopefully going to be doing in an internal audit career. Have you gotten any success stories, any feedback from your students who completed the course that went on to have a career in internal audit, or even elsewhere? What are you hearing from them?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the most rewarding things about this is the fact when students complete this course, there's usually 10 to 15% of them take part 1 of the CIA exam.
Oh, I love that.
And they don't really do much study beyond what they've learned in the class. And the vast majority of them actually pass that first part to the exam. And I sell it in class as a great resume builder. I mean, what better asset, I guess, to add to your resume than to show that you have the initiative, and the aptitude to take a professional exam and to pass it. So again, a number of our students go into the profession, but not the usual way one would think. Some have gone into internal audit departments, but most tend to go to public accounting firms. They go to work for public accounting firms, but they don't do financial auditing. They're doing risk advisory and assurance work on a consulting basis. And a couple of our students are senior managers now for major CPA firms and are on our partner track.
Yeah, we've as a profession got to do a better job of telling our students that there are opportunities at public accounting firms, but in internal audit, in risk and advisory. I think sometimes there's this perception that you have to go one or the other, right? Like I'm going to do external audit or I'm going to do taxes for a public accounting firm, or I'm going to go do internal audit with an organization. But you actually can do both in one area. You can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I think that many of the companies outsource their internal audit work anyway. So there's another avenue for students. And that's not to say I want to leave the misimpression that our students aren't going to internal audit departments, but I just want to point out that I see a great number of them move into CPA firms as well. And again, not necessarily doing financial audit work, but internal audit work on a consulting basis.
I love that. So it sounds like you guys are leading, the way in terms of internal audit education, which is probably why you're a Center of Excellence school. What advice would you have for other professors, universities that want to incorporate internal audit into their curriculum?
Yeah, that's another great question. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we relied when we set up our internal audit program, we relied heavily on the IIA's global model internal audit curriculum, and that should be the starting point. Is to look for that. That curriculum contains, sample learning objectives and content recommendations for 6 core courses, 6 supplemental courses, covering a wide range of internal audit knowledge and skills, from business communications all the way to, fraud and forensics. So I would suggest that they start there, develop their curriculum. Once the curriculum is in place, to coordinate with the IIA's Internal Auditing Education Partnership Program, to confirm the structure and the quality of their curriculum, and to get on a track, a fast track, one would hope, a fast track to becoming an internal audit center of excellence.
I love that. I promise our listeners I did not pay him to say that. So thank you so much, because I agree. There are so many great resources available for free to academics who want to share this information with their students, the textbook, case studies. So please reach out if that's something that you're interested in. Dennis, is there anything else you would like to add, you'd like our audience to know?
There's a great opportunity for universities to build out their business curriculum and attract students that are interested in not just accounting and auditing, but also the operational and compliance risk of companies. And the students would benefit by a broader curriculum that would address these issues, those issues that I just mentioned, operational risk, compliance risk, in addition to financial risk. And you'll see that students will be attracted to programs that have that in their curriculum. And in fact, we've seen a large increase in our MBA program and in our Master's in Accounting program by offering the internal audit curriculum. Don't offer a degree in it, but we do offer the courses that are also integrated into our curriculum. So there's a mutual benefit here for the students and for the university.
I absolutely agree. Again, love hearing you say that, because as we're seeing, universities have that decline in enrollment in their accounting majors, something that I just preach over and over is that we can succeed together by promoting other opportunities beyond just public accounting. And public accounting is a great career. As I mentioned, I'm a CPA. I know you're a CPA for many individuals. But for those students who may not want to go in public accounting, by promoting these other areas, internal audit, risk management, advisory services, management accounting even, you're opening up the door to more students, and you can help, your own enrollment in that way. So love to hear you say that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dennis. I really appreciated it. And I hope that some of our other educator members and just educators can take some of the advice and experience that you've had and take that back to their schools to grow awareness of the profession too.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me today, Lindsay. Appreciate it.
Want fresh ideas and real takeaways for your GRC role? Join the 2025 GRC Conference from August 18th to the 20th in New York or virtually. Packed with informative sessions and useful tools, the conference offers up to 24 CPEs. Snag your spot now at theiaa.org. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and rate us. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also catch other episodes on YouTube or at theiaa.org. That's THEIIA.org.